about Mia. Mia is the founder of the web and software development company Corey & Co. and host of Technically, a podcast. She started freelancing in high school and is now top rated plus and in the top 3% of work freelancers. She's passionate about empowering nonprofits and small business through the power of coding. She combines art and technology to solve problems creatively. You can find her on Instagram. Hello, it's Mia.tech. So, welcome, Mia. We are so happy to have you today. Oh, I will stop my screen so you can continue.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So hello, everyone. Like Shirley said, my name is Mia, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about how I got started in freelancing and the things that really made a difference for me in my career, especially early on when I was, in high school or when I was in college. Before I had a degree, didn't have tons of portfolio work experience because sometimes, especially in this tech market, it's like you need experience to get a job, but you need a job to get experience. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I navigated that when I was starting out and how I got where I am today. So about me, let me see if I can get rid of the Zoom controls. Okay. So a little bit about me. I had an early interest in art and coding. I learned Python in middle school, and I was always looking for ways to combine art and technology. That could be through things like 3D modeling, fractal creation, and later on websites. I started designing HTML and CSS guild pages on the quintessential website of the 2000s, Neopets, and I actually sold them. And so while most of you are probably looking for clients who pay in dollars, I was selling them for Neopoints when I was a kid online. So obviously, I don't consider my 9-year-old self to have been running a successful freelancing business, but it was here that I stumbled upon the golden rule of any kind of freelance work, whether it's graphic design, writing, software development, anything. The golden rule is communication. So even in the world of Neopets, understanding the client's vision was essential. Getting into their shoes and really understanding their brand. And I use that lesson today, even where I take on clients that pay in dollars and not Neopets. So this is my dog, Kiri and Coco. They inspired the name Kiri and Co. Yeah, so in high school, I had a casual web design business, making websites for like parents, friends, or helping them connect their social media feeds to their website, stuff like that. It was a very safe and sheltered environment. Deadlines were flexible and the stakes were really low. So when I left for Boston to study computer science and biology at Northeastern University, I kind of had to start over a little bit. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any contacts. So like many people, I turned to online platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, Freelancer, you name it. I was probably on there at some point. And while in college, I assumed it would be a temporary thing to just earn some extra money. And I never imagined it would go anywhere or turn into something capable of being a full-time position and supporting my life in Boston. But I ended up loving it and continuing it full-time. And I have been for almost 7 years now. And last year, after mostly operating off Upwork and sites like that, I'm now the proud new owner of the software and digital marketing company, Kiri & Co. And yeah, there's Kiri and Coco. So I have to give them some credit in this presentation for inspiring the name. So when I started out on online platforms, my main service was making websites, anything from Wix, Squarespace, WordPress, custom builds with React, Vue, I would do all of those. I think somebody is not on mute. I don't know. Yeah, okay. So now my service list for my company has grown to be app development, newsletters, illustration, digital marketing, video editing, podcast production, and a bunch more. So This is one strategy for standing out as a freelancer, is basically to be a one-stop shop. So you get a client for one service, and if they have a small business, they will likely be needing more of these other services, and you already have that relationship built. So it can be easy to turn one job into 5 more. However, I am not saying at all that you have to offer all of these services to stand out. There is tremendous value in specialization, picking the thing that you like to do best and only doing that, keeping yourself happy and healthy, just doing one thing you love and spending your energy upskilling in that. That's totally an amazing strategy. It's not one that will work for me because I get bored pretty easily and I love to learn new tech and new skills all the time. And it's one of the reasons why freelancing became a good fit for me, because basically I get to work on new projects every day, and that is what keeps my brain excited and stimulated. So for me, I kind of lean more towards the strategy of being a one-stop shop, but that is absolutely not a strategy that you have to do or that will work for everyone. If there's one thing you like to do, and you want to stick with that, that is also a strategy. Specialization works very well as well. So one thing that I learned early on was how to set boundaries. I feel like every freelancer kind of has a rite of passage client that is difficult and pushes their boundaries and really, has them practice saying no and setting boundaries. So, to kind of avoid that happening, although I think pretty much happens to everyone, contracts are really, really important. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, and fixed price versus hourly contracts, and the different cases those should be used in. But basically, the bottom line is setting out your expectations early on, having them agree on it. Both signing a contract is really, really important, just to make sure there's no miscommunication later on and protect everybody involved. So here are some of the things that worked for me early on when I was just joining those websites. Didn't have any reviews or anything like that. When your account is fresh, it's really hard to kind of get started sometimes. So these are the strategies that I used. One of the things I did was research competition. So I looked at other people's portfolios, their profiles, looked at what the going rates were for services, that kind of thing. I built my portfolio. So I had some things on there, but there's people with 10, 20 years of experience and hundreds of, case studies, etc. So I had to kind of compete with those people a little bit. And I'm going to talk a little later about some of the strategies I used to build my portfolio. And then the other thing I did was find a niche. So like I was saying, I kind of operate in the one-stop shop scenario where I really partner with a company and want to help them with their brand identity. And I operate more as like a partner than a contractor. I mean, technically I'm a contractor, but I kind of get more involved than a hands-off contractor would, where I'm really giving them like future strategy ideas, marketing ideas, stuff like that, versus just doing application development. And that was my niche. That's not something you have to do if you're not interested in that kind of more of a partnership relationship. That's totally fine. But just determining what you are looking for is really important. Another thing is showing your personality. So when you're on these sites, there's a lot of competition, and sometimes a lot of the profiles can start to look the same. And people have similar skills, similar accomplishments. So some of the things that can attract clients is to have something unique about your personality. People want to work with people who are friendly and approachable. So you don't always have to be super professional with the language that you use. If that is your personality, totally fine. You can do that. Personally, when I'm communicating with clients, I'm not always like starting my email like to whom it may concern or whatever corporate language is popular these days. But so on my portfolio and on my profile, I don't have that language there either, because I don't want people looking at that expecting that to be kind of the personality of the communication going forward. So I'm just authentic in my profile, and then clients can expect the same kind of communication later on. But, if that's not your style, that's also fine. Just it's important to be authentic in your profile. So when people are communicating with you later, they're not caught off guard or surprised. Another thing that was really helpful starting out was being the first to apply. So this is really helpful on things like Upwork or Fiverr. So you want to look for those jobs that were posted like 1 minute ago, 5 minutes ago. Jobs are always being posted, so that's not super hard. But when you're one of those first to apply and you're a new account, you're much more likely to get looked at. So you don't want to waste time on applying to jobs that were posted, a week ago, even a couple days ago, that have like 40 proposals already, because you will likely be overlooked in those early stages. So going back to portfolio building, these are some things that you can do if you don't currently have, a job in the field that you're looking to freelance in, or a paying client in the field you're looking to freelance in. So personally, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with, but there's tons of YouTube tutorials. LinkedIn Learning is also a really good resource. And you can actually get certifications from those courses on LinkedIn Learning. A lot of institutions offer free access to LinkedIn Learning. So if you're, affiliated with the university or some other corporation for your day job, check to see if they give you free access to LinkedIn Learning. There's lots of project-based tutorials on there. And another thing that you can do is data visualization. So just grab a free data set of something that you're interested in. During COVID, I worked with a lot of people that wanted to get into data visualization, and I would tell them, just grab some COVID data sets because that was really popular at the time. Chatbots are really popular now, AI chatbots, that kind of thing. And then on the volunteer side, this is fun because you get experience working with actual clients, and you can have like a real project, I guess, in your portfolio. So Democracy Lab, Launch Code, and Tech for Good are all sites that you can sign up for to get matched with basically like a nonprofit organization that is looking for developers, designers, writers, everything. And so you can get matched with a client to work on, a real project. Another thing is volunteering at conferences, and Fiverr has all these contests where the winner does get money. It's not like something that you want to quit your day job to just do Fiverr contests all day, because you might not win them, and the prize is usually low, but it's a good way to grow your portfolio and also make a little bit of extra money. So this is an example of somebody redesigning the Minnesota Vikings logo. Obviously, they weren't hired by them to redesign the logo, but this is kind of a example of you can just pick a project and do it as a personal project and build your portfolio. But the bottom line is you do not need anyone's permission to start building your portfolio. You don't need someone to hire you. You don't need a paying client. You just have to get out there and start. So portfolio websites are really important in freelancing. This is a screenshot of mine in the corner here. But two good ways to create a portfolio website are through GitHub Pages and Contra. So GitHub Pages, you need to have a little bit of HTML, CSS background for it to, go well. So if you're not super techy, then Contra is going to be easier. Contra, you have to pay per month to have it on a custom domain, whereas GitHub Pages is completely free. So that's kind of the downside there. But the nice thing about Contra is that they have really great templates. It can take like 20 minutes to set it up, and it's meant for freelancers. So they also have a whole portal there where you can apply for jobs, get discovered, and then also do your contracts and payments through, and they don't take any fees like Upwork. Upwork takes like 20% or something like that. Pretty high fees, but Contra doesn't take any fees. So that can be a really easy way to get your portfolio website up, running, professional looking in a really, really short amount of time. I have the crown here on the GitHub Pages because that is what I personally would recommend. It's flexible. You have control over the entire code base. You can do whatever you want with it, and it's free. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So for languages and branding, I talked a little bit about this earlier when I was saying if you don't want to be, using corporate talk when you're talking with your clients, don't put that kind of thing on your portfolio. So that's similar here. you want to attract your dream client. So think about what kind of projects you want to work on. If you really like, React and you want to do React projects, make sure your portfolio has a lot of React on there. If you hate writing R code, but you have a bunch of R projects on your portfolio, you're probably going to attract more R projects. So you want to put projects on there that reflect what you want to work on. And then you don't be afraid to show your personality, put other interests on there. If you like to play sports or whatever, you can put little bits of that on there, and that will help, if somebody's looking at your profile and they run a sports company, they might, be attracted to you for that reason. So cover letters. This is especially important on Upwork, but other sites have, a version of this as well. And here are my top tips that really worked for me. So have a template to make it fast for you to be able to apply to jobs, but never just copy paste that same template. You always want to write a cover letter that's very specific to the job description. So there's no way to really copy paste it to a bunch of jobs and bulk apply. That won't work very well, because you want a really specialized cover letter that will get you the job in the end. So even though it's tempting, don't just copy paste it. You can start out with a template, but you need to be able to customize it to the job description. And I'll give you an example of that a little bit later on. Yeah, so you want to rephrase what they're looking for so they know that you read the job description. Use language that reflects the way you actually speak. Include a roadmap. So something like, if we were to get started, this is what it would look like. Include some sort of personal connection that is why the job caught your eye. So if it's, for example, a website for a nonprofit that, does dog rescues or something like that, you can talk about how it caught your eye because you really like dogs or something like that. Which it might seem dumb, but it's actually really helpful when there's, 20 other proposals in there. And a lot of times clients are looking for somebody that has some sort of personal connection or personal interest. So adding that in there is helpful. Another thing you can do, especially if you're starting out when you don't have a lot of reviews on the platform, is you can put the testimonials in your cover letter. So here are some things my clients have said about me, and then just throw your testimonials right in there. That's good even if you do have some testimonials on your profile already, because they're not always going to click to your profile and read through those. So putting them in your cover letter, even if you have them on your portfolio, repeating them there is also a great strategy. So here's what we're talking about by a template. That is not just something that you're going to copy and paste. So when you're writing your cover letter, you want to have your job description right there next to you so you can read it, because you want to be able to, take directly from there and put it into your cover letter. So the first thing is, instead of starting with hello, like how are you doing, whatever, on the first line, I always put a tagline, because a lot of times there is like a little preview text when they're seeing all the proposals, and almost everybody's starting their cover letter with hello and a greeting, but that doesn't really tell them anything about you that wants to make them click. So if this job description is somebody looking for an experienced software engineer, you can put at the top the tagline that matches, what they're looking for. Because then instead of seeing a little preview line of, hello, my name is, they'll see, experienced software engineer, and then they'll want to click on that. So then after the tagline, you can start with your greeting. And then you want to rephrase the job description in some way that shows that you read it and paid attention and know what the job is, because you'll be surprised how many proposals people will get where people clearly did not read the job description and they just copied and pasted something in there. So make sure you show that you did read the job description. So next I have a little bit about me, and then you want to talk a little bit about your background and experience. I usually say a project that I worked on that is most relevant to that job and include a link to it. And then that is also a good place where you can put the personal connection. So like why you're interested in that particular industry or design style, etc. Another thing you can do is include a document with the proposed schedule of deliverables. You do not have to spend a ton of time on this, especially because this is not a paying client yet. You don't have a contract. You have no guarantee that they're even going to read this. So you don't want to spend a ton of time on this document. But if you have like a really easy timeline template, and you just kind of insert, round 1, round 2 deliverables, etc. in there and include a document, it can be helpful in getting people to actually end up having a contract with you. So another thing you can do is have a video. This isn't always great, but if there's a specific project you did that's more of a show and tell situation, including a video demonstrating it is sometimes really good, but definitely not something you want to do for every cover letter because it's going to take you forever. And then the other thing is you don't want to seem like you are 100% going to take the job. I put like playing hard to get a little bit. Obviously, you don't want to lie and say like I'm booked up, but it's good if you make it seem like you want to get a deeper understanding of the project and see if it's a good fit, which is just a good rule of thumb anyway. If you take whatever project is out there, you're going to end up working with some really difficult clients on projects you do not want to be working on. So you do want to actually be a little bit hard to get and protect yourself in that way and learn more about the project and determine if it is something that you want to be working on. So a little bit more about contracts. One good thing about going through freelancing websites versus doing stuff on your own is that they take care of a lot of the contract for you and even offer some like mediation services. So if somebody doesn't pay you or ghosts you or whatever, things like Upwork do provide a way to get compensated. So that's one good safe thing about going through a website like that. And I recommend when you're starting out and getting used to contracts and negotiation and everything like that to go through a website that will do that protecting for you. But one of the things that you want to include for sure is the timeline. And also, if you are doing a project and you have a tendency to work like late or work on the weekends or fast turnaround times, sometimes if you include in your project a higher hourly fee, it protects you a little bit from working all day long 24/7 and not setting that boundary. Sometimes I have the tendency to do that. A lot of freelancers do. A lot of people who are working for themselves kind of don't work the normal 9 to 5. They work longer sometimes, but you do not have to do that. And if you are putting in like a fast turnaround time clause, you can always negotiate a higher hourly rate for that kind of work. And then also there's a lot of really great resources on what to include in a freelance contract. This is from the Upwork website itself, this article, How to Make a Freelance Contract. And if you guys are interested, I have some links later on where I can email you all of the resources that I think are really important. So for onboarding, these are the 5 really important things you want to do. Obviously, get all the contracts signed. Sometimes there's NDAs involved. Always get all that stuff sorted out before you onboard, just to avoid issues later. Same with the timeline. That's a really important communication step, is to have that written out somewhere. So that way, if a client later on is asking you like, where is this, you can point to the timeline and say, I have 2 days to the deadline, or I'm going to get this to you by this day, as we discussed, whatever. File sharing, that's just determining what works best for the project for file sharing. So whether it's like making a shared Dropbox folder or shared Google Drive folder or something like that, just kind of discuss that with your client and put something in writing that can be referenced later. It's just, it's professional and it helps the communication be smoother later. Another thing that can be helpful is an intake form. So if you do a lot of, web design projects, you can have something where they put in links to other websites they like, vision board, keywords for SEO, something like that. But you can turn that into a form that just makes the intake process a little bit easier. And then the best ways to communicate, you can both discuss, like, I personally have my phone on me all the time, so I tell people to text me, but other people don't want their clients texting them. So they, you could say, please email me, or some people like Slack, but it's a good thing to discuss when onboarding. So offboarding, things you want to include are the deliverables and in multiple file formats. I like to include a guide on how to use the different file formats. So if I'm giving somebody, like a favicon for a site, their logo as a PNG, as an SVG, as an InDesign project, I have a little document that has each of those file formats and what they're best used for, because not everybody knows what the difference are, and it's nice to include that information for them. Documentation, if you're doing a coding project, always have that in the offboarding. Passwords, ownership transfer is always better than just putting, giving them passwords, obviously, because security reasons, and you want to encourage them to change all those passwords because you don't want to have access to a site after the contract is over, because if they do something to the site, you don't want to get blamed for it. So basically you want to make sure you hand over all of that stuff at the end, so you don't want to have any link to that later. Just protects everyone involved. Referral discount, you could give them a code if they refer you to like one of their friends. Asking for testimonials and feedback on what you could do better. Great thing to include in offboarding that sometimes you forget and then later want to reach out for testimonials. The other thing is getting permission to use the work in your portfolio. And sometimes you do have to fire a client. There are difficult people. It can be hit or miss on Upwork. There's a lot of people that will try to take advantage of you, and basically just giving you permission. You do not have to continue working with them if they're making you uncomfortable or taking advantage of you and it's not worth your time. But some ways to do that, you want to be professional. Don't yell at them. It's usually good to stop the client relationship before it gets to a point where you're that angry that you want to be yelling at them. Send them their offboarding documents, and then you can refer them to another service. I wouldn't refer them to like a friend or something like that if you know that they're difficult. I usually say like, there's a bunch of people on Upwork that do really good work on blah, 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 and give them a link or something like that, rather than, directly referring them to a person, because if I know that they're difficult, I don't want to do that to somebody that I like. So on the topic of referrals and testimonials, if you want me to provide a testimonial for you, I'm happy to look over your profile and your work and write something up about you. I'm not gonna like lie, so include a good amount about you and a good amount about your portfolio. And connect with me online. I am very happy to be friends, grow the freelancing community. Yeah, there's room for everybody. I'm very much a proponent of community over competition, so I'm happy to connect with you, happy to be a testimonial for you. Yeah, so I have a couple links later where you can send in this information if you do want to if you do want me to provide a testimonial for you. Similarly, for if you need help with your profile or with cover letters or with your website and you want me to kind of look at it and give you some tips, this QR code for a form to send over that information. And also, I get a lot of people on my wait list. So if there's something that you really like to do, like WordPress sites or Vue, React, whatever, send me an email, let me know what you'd like to do, send me a link to your portfolio, and I'm happy to put you in my list of referrals. So if I have people on my wait list, I will send them your way. So yeah, definitely send me an email if that's something that you're interested in. And this QR code is for if you want me to review your portfolio or cover letter or something like that. And Upwork has a good amount of stats on there. So if you've been working on there for a while, you'll see like it tells you your portfolio is viewed, 20% less than the average or 20% more than the average, or you get a client 20% less than the average. And those stats are really important because if you keep checking in on them, you can change something on your portfolio or on your profile and see if that helps those stats move. So it's really important to check in with that and kind of have a feedback loop. Otherwise, you can be kind of shouting into the void and not know what's working and what's not working. So I'm happy to help with any questions like that if anyone is having a bad experience or not getting clicks on their profile or portfolio. I'm happy to help. So going back to when I was talking about GitHub Pages as a good place to build a portfolio website, here are the steps. This is a really high-level overview. I have a very in-depth tutorial that I've filmed and a couple articles that I've written with more instructions on it that are coming out next week. And I included the link here to both the newsletter that you'll get notified for when they come out and my Instagram, which I'll also post about when they come out. But you can also email me and ask me for them. I'm happy to share it. It's all free. But yeah, just put these links here in case you want to get notified for when that stuff comes out. But just a really high level overview. The first thing you want to do is go to startbootstrap.com, look through the themes, find one that you like. Doesn't have to be exactly what you want. You're going to change it anyway. So, don't worry about the colors or the fonts or anything like that. Clone it to your GitHub or download it, edit the code, push it to Git, and deploy it with GitHub Pages. And that's all you have to do. If you don't have HTML, CSS coding background, this high-level overview is probably confusing and not helpful. So you're going to want to look at one of the more in-depth tutorials. But it is a really good way to have a nice professional portfolio site and have it hosted for free. And you can buy a domain for like $2 a year somewhere like on Namecheap, and then connect it to your GitHub Pages site. So it's really great. And then the other thing is on GitHub Pages, they are static. So things like a contact form or other things requiring backend capabilities, you might think wouldn't work on GitHub Pages because it's only for static sites. But the trick is you can use FormSpree as the endpoint for your form. And you can get kind of a backend hookup on your GitHub Pages site. So like my site is a GitHub Pages site, but I do have a contact form. So if you fill it out, I get an email. And you can add that capability through little workarounds like FormSpree. And I'll have a detailed tutorial of how to do all of those things coming out the next couple weeks. So yeah, on Instagram, I'll post about it. It'll be on my Medium. You can send me an email, I'll send it to you. But yeah, just contact me and I'll get it to you if you're looking for that. The other thing I have on this QR code is my top meet. So I do meet with people and do consultations. I don't know what the price is on there. It's pretty cheap, but if you're in this and you want to meet with me, I will meet with you for free. Just send me an email and I'll send you a code. I just like talking with people and helping them out. So happy to do that for free. Just send me an email. So these are some Upwork specific tips because this is the platform that I spent the most amount of time on and found the most success on. And this varies depending where you are. Like this is a really good thing for if you're freelancing in the US. I don't know the market super well outside of the US just because this is where I freelanced. But definitely a lot of the tips still apply. So for Upwork, I talked about it a little bit earlier, apply early. So the jobs that were posted 5 minutes ago, 2 minutes ago, 1 minute ago, apply to those jobs as soon as you can. Use your location settings. So if you are in the US, you want to make sure you're on the US only, just because it's hard to compete outside of the US job market. If you're on like the prices will be different. So if you're in the US, you want to be using your location settings. Similarly, if you're in a different market, you don't want to be competing in a market that doesn't match what your hourly rate is. So really use those filters and location settings. Be approachable. So this goes back to kind of using language that fits you. If you're kind of overly corporate and cold in your portfolio, you're going to get less people reaching out to you. Although that works for some niches. So if you're, like a technical writer, that might work better for you. For what I'm doing, more like friendly, approachable is works better for that market. But you just want to find what works best for your market. Especially when you're starting out, you want to do hourly contracts as much as possible, just because it's really easy to get taken advantage of on a fixed price contract. A lot of projects evolve, especially with web development, software development. I'm sure you guys know if you work with somebody that there's always new features, there's always things that they want changed. So a fixed price contract is kind of a dangerous place to be. There's ways to do it. You just have to be really specific in the contract and really put how many revisions you're going to have in there. But especially early on, before you know what your workflow is like and how long stuff is going to be with somebody having a bunch of revisions, it's best to do hourly. Another thing you can do is post a job yourself. Find something that you need done, whether it's, has some help on your personal website or whatever. Post a job on Upwork and see what kind of proposals come in. And you'll get a feel for the style of proposals, how many you get, what the hourly rates are, if you kind of pose as a client. And the other thing we talked about is the different cover letter for every application. That's really important. If you're copy pasting the same one in there, even if you apply to 100 jobs, you're going to get a much lower rate of return if you're not putting in that customized cover letter. And then down here, the last thing is trial and error. So that's what I was saying about using the Upwork statistics. So they'll let you know how often your profile is being viewed, how often you're getting actually chosen for the jobs, and actually use those statistics. Change something on your profile and see if it affects anything. And then here is a QR code again for the portfolio or cover letter review or website review if you want me to look at any of your stuff. So this is a roadmap for if you're trying to get into freelancing. This is kind of what I would recommend. So I have here at the top to save kind of seed money or start it as a side gig. A lot of times you'll see on like Instagram or places people like, get $10,000 a week after 1 month and I quit my job or whatever. That's not very common, so don't expect that going in. It took me 4 or 5 months before I was getting, enough to be living on, which I think is even on the lower side of what is average. I got kind of lucky early on. I got featured on Upwork's like up and coming profiles, which is more or less random. I mean, so you do have to kind of give it some time early on, and it's better if you have some money saved up or if it's a side gig, something like that. But I wouldn't, quit your job before establishing any clientele, expecting that what the Instagram influencers are trying to say. I would not expect that. But I mean, it definitely is possible to do it full time. I do it full time. I left big tech for that. So, abandoned my dreams of working in big tech for that. So it's definitely viable and something that you can do and be really successful at. But you need to give it time and yeah. So, and then for building your portfolio, Fiverr contests, yeah, so down here I kind of outlined Fiverr, Upwork, and Contra as 3 big platforms to join. So Fiverr is good for those contests. Upwork is good for because they have the contract protection, and then Contra is good because they don't have any fees. So starting out on those 3 platforms is a good place to be. And then don't underestimate the power of networking. A lot of my long-term clients and highest paying clients have been through networking rather than finding them on Upwork. Well, it's been a mix. I found a good amount of clients through sites like Upwork, but there's also a good amount that I found, at a conference or, at a restaurant. So that's always really important, is networking. And then also, if you treat your clients well, they will find more clients for you. And that is a great place to be because you don't have to be applying to jobs. So after 4 or 5 months on Upwork, I didn't have to apply anymore. I had people sending their proposals to me, which is nice because you don't have to spend that time doing that. And you get to kind of choose what jobs you want to work on. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions? And I put my links here again. So here's my Instagram, website where you can sign up for the newsletter, my email, and yeah. So for
Yes.
questions, do you want me to stop my share? Are you going to moderate that, or do you want me to go through the chat?
I can share the slide and yeah, we continue. Thank you, Mia.
Yep, and then I think my last slide just has the same resources. Yeah, and I can put these links in the chat too, but it should pretty much be the same stuff. But I will stop my share so you can take over for the Q&A.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mm. Okay, so we will start the question and answers. Yeah, we have, oh, we have this question. How do you decide how much our work worth?
Yeah, so this can be really tricky starting out, especially when you don't know what your niche is, because there's going to be different hourly rates, even for the same services for different niches. So one of the things that really helped me was when I posted a job and I saw what people were bidding, and then like what kind of services they were providing. So there's always somebody who has like a lot of experience and is providing like a really white glove, like very professional service where they're going to be doing above and beyond, but they're charging like hundreds of dollars an hour. So that's like on one end. And then on the other end, there's somebody that's going to give you something really fast, but it's not going to be really tailored to what you're looking for. It's probably like more of a template. Like if it's a website we're talking about, it's probably like they're filling your information into a template, not doing much customizations after that. And they're going to be on the lower end of the hourly rate. So kind of figuring out where you're comfortable working. Obviously, people want to be making more money, so you want to go for the higher end rate. But what if you are in that niche, then you're gonna have to be providing like that really tailored services. And you kind of have to have a little bit of a clientele built up because people are wanting testimonials or references at that level. So sometimes it can be easier to start at the more fast turnaround time, lower rate level, and then working your way up. That's what I did. I took a couple of really low milestone projects on Upwork when I first started out, like, $20, $30 milestone projects where it was just like building an email form or something like that, that took like maybe an hour, maybe 20 minutes, just to get stuff on my portfolio, or like build up my profile. So that is definitely something that you might have to do early on. And you can be honest too, if you're applying for a job, like you can say, I just joined Upwork, but I've been doing this for 5 years. And it doesn't have to be you've been doing work with clients for 5 years. It could be like, I've been really interested in learning this, like whatever. You have more experience than you realize a lot of times. Even if you think that you've never worked with a client before or whatever, you're more valuable than you think a lot of the time. So don't sell yourself short. And it's a lot of trial and error to find what that rate is. And you can, 1 week set it higher, see what happens, 1 week set it lower, see what happens. But it's a lot of trial and error.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Ainur. How do you know if you're ready to start freelancing? What essential knowledge should I have, like SEO practices, ownership, transfer, and so on? And thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, so if you're looking to make the transition but aren't sure if you're ready, one good way to do it is just do it little by little. So, don't quit whatever your job is that you're starting with now, but set aside maybe like 1 hour a day to work a little bit on your freelancing career. And when I first started, I was offering services that were not very technical. Like I was working on Squarespace and Wix sites and stuff like that, which you can learn that pretty quickly if you're a little bit tech savvy. There's no coding in that even. So you can start out with a really niche services offering. It doesn't have to be a lot of stuff. It can just be a couple of things. Get good at that one thing, and then start to test out, branching out your skills and other things, and then adding slowly to your services list. So I know I showed my services list early on and I had all of those things on there, but that's after years and years and years that grew. When I first started out, I was literally doing like Wix and Squarespace sites. So, that's totally an option. And people are really successful doing only that for years and years and years. That's all they do. They never branch out because that's what they find they like to do. And that's what they're making a bunch of money in. So, you definitely don't have to know all of the skills to get started. But some things that are in high demand are SEO right now, especially. Copywriting is important, especially because a lot of people are using ChatGPT, but then that's kind of, search engines are kind of seeing through that. People are seeing through that. So learning how to be a good copywriter, using AI tools, but also, tweaking it so it's not clearly AI is an important skill right now. And yeah, domain ownership transfer is something that is tricky for most people. So it is a good skill to have. It's not super difficult to learn. And you can always email me. I have tutorials on that as well if people are interested in that. But that is something that is kind of a little bit more of a niche skill. So that's good to have. Good, makes you stand out. And then like scripting is usually always in demand. So like data scraping, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. Well, the next question from Stacy. How do you go about figuring out your niche clients? Niche
So for
clients.
me, it was kind of just through trial and error of being on Upwork. And when I would take on clients, I would become interested in like, what does their social media look like? What does their marketing look like? How do I best design the website so it fits in with their brand as a whole, or like adding in like having ideas for like, oh, maybe you should start a newsletter, maybe you should do this. So it kind of just came as that was naturally what I wanted to do, was kind of be on more of a partner level, be more long term. So like I usually have 3 to 4 contracts going on, but that are long term relationships that are lots of hours rather than, short turnarounds of, build one website, couple weeks, then build another website couple weeks. Like I'm maintaining those relationships long term because I'm, continually coming up with new marketing strategies, etc., or building an app or something like that, like always adding on more stuff. But that's just how I like to work. So that's how I figured it out. Is basically I started doing those things and I liked it. But if that's not something that you want to do, if you do want to be, make a website for a restaurant and then make a website for somebody else the next week, and that's your niche, then you kind of just have to think about what you would like to do, and then stick with that. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question from Violina. How can freelancers maintain a healthy work-life balance and avoid burnout?
Yeah, so that's a big one. Definitely one that I struggled with many times, especially because I really like what I do. So I often will do work on Saturday or, after 5 p.m. But I like it. So I'm not necessarily always pushing for that, like really, really tight boundaries, although that works better for some people. So you really just have to understand what works for you and write those things into the contract. So that goes into communication really early on. So if you're not going to be available after a certain time or on the weekends or whatever, like write that into your contract. If you don't have that in there, if it's vague, sometimes you can feel like you have to be available 24/7. I definitely early on had clients texting me at 2 a.m. wanting me to do stuff, and I felt, kind of maybe obligated to do it. So if you set those boundaries at the beginning, it's a lot easier later to be like, you can set your offline messages. If it's on Slack, you can have an automated response. I'm away right now. I'll get that to that, 9 a.m. tomorrow or whatever. So yeah, it's just the most important thing is to set the boundaries and expectations early on. So then there's no, no misunderstandings later on. And if you want to have a day where you don't have any meetings, I have that in my calendar. I have a couple days where I don't allow people to schedule meetings. And then I use that day to, catch up on marketing or looking at my Upwork portfolio, submitting proposals. I don't do a lot of proposal submitting anymore because a lot of clients come to me outside of Upwork through my company. But when I was doing a lot of proposals, I had a day where I didn't have any meetings where I just did that. So it's just kind of about finding what works best for you and setting those expectations really early on, because it is easy to fall into that trap of you are working 24/7. You have clients texting you at midnight, texting you on the weekends, and you feel obligated to answer them. And I definitely have done that in the past. So the best thing to do is set those boundaries early to avoid burning out.
Yeah, thank you. The last one from Maria. If the design keep changing and client go back and forward with requests and QA and new implementation, are you adding extra charge?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that it's really, really, really important to put in a contract, especially if it's a fixed price contract. So a fixed price contract is like they pay you whatever $5,000 and you have X deliverables that you're going to get to them. Rather than an hourly contract where they're paying you, you know, whatever, $50 an hour, $20 an hour, whatever your rate is. So if you have a fixed price contract, which I do not recommend when you're starting out, because if you do not know what your workflow is yet, it's really hard to get all of those points into that fixed price contract. But if you are going to do a fixed price contract, you need to have the amount of revisions that you are including in that price in that contract and be specific about what that revision means. Like, you know, if it's a website, be like, one design revision, I'm including these things, or I will change text 3 times and include it in this. And then you can include in there like any additional revisions will be $100 or whatever, $30 an hour for every additional revision. It's really important to have that in the contract, or you can get stuck in a back and forth forever, but you're not getting paid more. It's that same fixed rate. So basically your hourly rate is going down with every revision, and you don't want to get stuck in a situation like that. So I always recommend when you can, when you're starting out, do hourly. If you get a really good grasp on what your workflow is and you can like, you're doing the same kind of website over and over again, you're really clear services and packages, then you can do fixed rate. But it's something that you have to kind of get really good at to make it worth it for you. And you always want to overestimate the amount of time it will take you for a fixed rate contract. So usually it's better for the client to do hourly because if I'm doing fixed rate, I'm like expecting the worst case scenario basically. So they could be asking for a really simple website, but I'm gonna give them like, this is what I'll do for a fixed rate because I'm anticipating all of these issues. And I often tell people that too. I'm like, you know what, if this is a really simple project and it's only going to take me like 10 hours, I can do it for this price hourly. If you want it to be a fixed rate, it's going to be more because I don't know what's going to come up and it's, you know, I'm not as protected. And Upwork does hourly work protection, but they don't do fixed rate protection. So it's always better to go for hourly, especially when you're starting out.
Yeah, that's right. That's a really good advice. And thank you, Mia. We had a really good questions and all the information for you was really valuable. Thank you so much. I think there are no more questions. And yeah, thank you so much, Mia. We have a really good time. Yeah, it was a really great content for us.
Awesome. Yeah. And if anyone, feel free to reach out to me, connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn. And if you want me to look at your websites or your portfolio or want any resources, please let me know. I have that form. And if you want to be on my referral list for people who are on my wait list, I'm happy to put people on that as well. Just send me what you're interested in doing and your portfolio. And yeah, happy to connect with anybody.
Yay, thank you. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for all for thinking.